I'm Jim Haggerty. Welcome to What Did I Just Watch? What did I just watch? I just watched George A. Romero's Knightriders. I've been looking for this movie for a long time. I finally had the opportunity to see it, and I'm so glad I got a chance to because it's really, really good. I once read Romero saying that this was his best movie. I don't know if I would go that far. It's kind of hard to say that to a guy whose body of work includes Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Martin, and so many great horror movies. But it's definitely a very ambitious movie. It's a full kind of epic. It's 2.5 hours long, starring Ed Harris, young Ed Harris, and it's really a fascinating outsider movie, I like to call it. Movies like this, you really got in the 60s, the 70s, even the 80s, the early 80s, clearly with this, where it was a lot like Easy Rider to me, showing just guys who have kind of a different perspective than popular society and the lengths that they go to live the life that they choose, and sometimes what is the ultimate, how they ultimately pay for that. So Ed Harris rules over this kind of traveling band of gypsies that sort of run these Ren fairs / jousting matches done in full armor but on motorcycles instead of horseback, for local middle America rubes who, come and pay and cheer and, want to see the blood sport. They don't kill each other, but, they do get hurt a lot. And it's interesting, just kind of the lifestyle that they live behind the scenes and where it's starting to fall apart. Because Ed Harris is so idealistic and so bent on being who he is and being, a man who clearly probably should live in a totally different time period, but he lives today and he's not adapting to it. And then some of the guys in the troupe get it and some of them don't. Tom Savini plays kind of his sort of nemesis, his sort of his second in command, but sort of his nemesis as the Black Knight who, appreciates what they're doing, but does feel like they could do more. They could make it bigger. They could bring it more into the now. And Ed Harris absolutely refuses in any way, despite, lacking fame, lacking riches, lacking approval, because he ultimately feels like these things will be corrupted. And then eventually a lot of, his people go off and they find and they do see how the corruption comes in and they do learn. And it's a deep movie. There's a lot to it. Romero really crafts an interesting movie that I don't think it's the sort of thing that you'll love while you're watching it. I think that since I've seen it, the more I think about it, the more I like it and how original and interesting it was. And also what's great about Romero is anybody that knows his films knows that he always puts in a lot of kind of heady subtext. There's always a lot there that's, beyond the zombies, beyond the gore, or whatever the movie is, beyond just the action. There's a lot more to it. For example, one of the things I really liked was there was a whole subplot about some of the homosexuals in the troupe, in the group that were, and it dealt with them in a very sympathetic, very tolerant sort of way, much more so than I can think of in any movie made in or around 1981 when, homosexuality was dealt with as very other and very scary or played for laughs and, mocking in a mocking tone. Because Romero always kind of had his finger on the pulse of things, I think, and he really was a guy that was ahead of his time, and it's refreshing to see that in a movie that old. I think the performances are great. Ed Harris is great. Tom Savini is really good, and some of the interesting notes. You see a lot of regulars from Romero's films. Ken Foree shows up, John Amplas. You also, Patricia Tallman, who starred in the Tom Savini directed Night of the Living Dead remake as Barbara. Wasn't never that wild about that one, but maybe I'll revisit it and maybe I'll give it another look. But she's also in it. And Stephen King, of course, Romero's buddy, who did the Creepshow movie with him. He has a cameo. He has a funny cameo as one of the, small town rubes that they're entertaining, which was fun. It's a good movie. I'm really thankful I got to finally see it, and I think it's out of print, but I found it on Amazon Prime. I encourage people to look it up And if you know the movie and you've seen it, please feel free to comment and let me know what you thought about it, you know, good, bad, or otherwise. Because it's a movie that it's worth talking about and discussing. But yeah, so that's what I just watched. I'm Jim Haggerty, and until tomorrow.